The mackerel fishery in Taiwan is an important part of the country's fisheries. With modern and efficient fishing methods, Taiwan has a large fishing fleet and uses a variety of techniques to catch mackerel, especially Decapterous SPP and Traitorous SPP. Taiwanese fishermen use a variety of methods to catch mackerel, including seine. This is the most common method for catching large quantities of mackerel. Large vessels cast the net in a circle, then narrow it to gather the fish into the net. This method is especially effective for large schools of mackerel in coastal and offshore waters. Bottom trawl. Some mackerel fishing vessels use bottom trawls to catch fish in deeper water. This method is mainly used for mackerel and some species of mackerel that live near the seabed. Handline fishing. Some fishermen use handline or mechanical fishing to catch mackerel in smaller quantities, mainly for the domestic market and for export to Japan. Gill net. Some mackerel fishing vessels also use gill net to catch fish at night, when mackerel are more active. Taiwan Strait. This is an area with rich mackerel resources, with many fishing vessels operating year-round. Eastern Taiwan waters. Large vessels often fish for mackerel far from shore here, especially during the peak fishing season. International waters. Taiwan also has a fleet of offshore fishing vessels operating in international waters, especially in the Western Pacific. The mackerel processing industry in Taiwan is very developed, with many factories processing fish for export to Japan, Korea, China and Southeast Asian countries. Mackerel is often processed into whole frozen mackerel fillets, canned mackerel, mackerel in tomato sauce, mackerel in oil, dried mackerel. Sustainable fishing. Due to high fishing pressure, the Taiwanese government has implemented many measures to manage the fishery, including catch quotas and control of the number of boats. International competition. Taiwan has to compete with other countries such as China, Japan and the Philippines in the exploitation and export of mackerel. Climate change. Changes in sea temperature and ocean currents may affect mackerel resources in the future. In summary, the mackerel fishing industry in Taiwan plays an important role in the fisheries economy, with modern fishing methods, large output and strong export markets. However, to ensure sustainable development, strict management and the application of environmentally friendly fishing technologies are needed. The Sanjiahu fishing boat is one of the large capacity fishing boats in Taiwan, specializing in using seine to harvest mackerel and other pelagic fish. The fishing process on this boat is carried out by dropping a giant seine, then narrowing the net to gather the fish before sucking them directly into the cabin using a high-capacity pump system. The fishing and harvesting process on the Sanjiahu boat. The boat uses sonar, radar and positioning devices to find large schools of mackerel. When a potential school of fish is detected, the boat will drop a small boat carrying one end of the seine to begin surrounding the school of fish. Purse nets can be hundreds of meters long and are dropped into the water to encircle the fish. A cable at the bottom of the net will pull it tight, turning the net into a giant bag that holds the fish inside. Once the fish are trapped in the net, a hydraulic winch system will slowly pull the net back, concentrating the fish into a smaller corner. Workers on board will use a secondary net to gather the fish into larger blocks before pumping begins. A high-powered pump will be lowered into the net where the fish are concentrated. The suction system operates at high speed, bringing the fish directly into the ship's cabin. The water will be separated from the fish before the fish are immediately chilled to preserve their freshness. The mackerel will be quickly sorted after being sucked into the ship. Some ships such as the Sanjiahu have a cold storage system, -30 degrees Celsius, right on board, helping to keep the fish fresher for export. Advantages of this method. Fast. Helps harvest hundreds of tons of fish in a short time. Reduced loss. Limits the crushing of fish when using a net to pull fish onto the deck. Better preservation. The rapid cooling system keeps fish fresh immediately after catching. The Sanjiahu is a typical example of Taiwan's modern fishing technology, optimizing efficiency and preserving fish at the highest quality. With the net-to-fish method, this ship helps improve the productivity of catching mackerel while still ensuring product quality for the export market. After the fish are sucked into the cabin, the Sanjiahu boat has an onboard processing process to ensure the highest freshness and quality before being sold or exported. The fish are passed through a conveyor system to be washed with seawater. Workers classify the fish based on size and type, ensuring that the mackerel are of the appropriate size before freezing. The fish are put into a cold storage tank with a temperature of -30 degrees Celsius or lower. Some boats can use the freezing method with cold salt solution, RSW, refrigerated seawater, to quickly cool the fish before putting them in the freezer compartment. Some boats like the Sanjiahu can perform some simple pre-processing steps on board, such as cutting off the head and cleaning the organs, depending on market requirements. Freezing whole fish for export or sale at processing plants. Packing the fish by weight before putting them in the holding compartment. After the fishing trip is over, the Sanjiahu will return to major ports such as Donggang Fishery Port, Kaohsiung, Keelung, where there are many seafood processing factories. From here, the mackerel will be brought to processing factories to make canned fish, frozen fish or dried salted fish, exported to Japan, Korea, China and Southeast Asia, where there is a high demand for mackerel. Despite using modern technology like the Sanjiahu, the mackerel fishing industry still faces some problems. Pressure from international regulations. Some environmental protection organizations require Taiwan to strictly control the number of vessels and fishing quotas. Climate change. Changing sea temperatures can cause mackerel to move further, making fishing more difficult. Competition from other countries, China, Japan, and the Philippines also have strong mackerel fishing fleets, causing great competitive pressure. To ensure sustainable resources, vessels like Sanjiahu can apply electronic monitoring systems to track catches, apply advanced AI and sonar technology to detect fish schools more accurately, improve onboard preservation with IQF, individual quick freezing, technology, identify fish schools with sonar and radar, cast a seine net around the fish school, collect the net and gather the fish in a small corner, suction the fish into the cabin with a high-capacity pump, clean, classify, freeze right on the vessel, transport to port for processing or export. The Sanjiahu is a typical example of Taiwan's modern mackerel fishing technology, helping to increase output, reduce losses and protect the best quality of fresh fish. Gill nets are one of the important methods for catching mullet in many seas, especially in Taiwan, China, Vietnam, Japan and the Mediterranean. Mullet usually lives in coastal waters, estuaries and areas with mud or sand bottoms, so gill nets are a suitable tool for exploiting this fish species. Characteristics of gill nets for catching mullet. Gill nets operate on the principle of spreading horizontally in the water. The fish will get caught in the net when trying to swim across. The type of gill net used to catch mullet often has the following characteristics. Length can be from 100 to 500 meters long, depending on the scale of exploitation. Height, about 3 to 6 meters, suitable for shallow coastal waters. Mesh size, 40 to 70 millimeters, just enough to hold commercial-sized mullet without harming juvenile fish. Net structure consists of a buoy above and a lead wire below, helping the net to stand upright in the water. Consists of a single layer of net. Fish get caught in the net due to the head or fin being stuck. Usually spread in coastal waters, where mullet move in schools. 3-layer trammel net. Trammel net consists of 3 layers of net overlapping each other, helping to hold fish better. Mullet get caught in the net mainly due to being wrapped in the inner layer of net. Mullet often gathers in coastal areas, river mouths, mangrove forests and lagoons. The most effective fishing is in the early morning or late afternoon. When mullet move to feed, the boat drops the net in an arc or U shape to surround the school of fish. The net can be fixed or let drift with the current. After a few hours, the fisherman will pull the net up and harvest the fish caught in the net. Mullet tend to swim along the edge of the net, so the net must be carefully pulled back to prevent fish from escaping. After harvesting, mullet is kept in ice to keep it fresh. If caught for salted mullet, dried mullet or mullet roe for export, the fish can be processed right on the boat. High efficiency, can harvest fish in large quantities. Less impact on the seabed, no dragging like bottom trawl. Maintain good fish quality, does not cause much scratching of fish. Suitable for export. Risk of catching young fish if mesh size is not controlled. May affect other species if not collected at the right time. In Taiwan, mullet is caught a lot in winter, when they migrate from deep water to the shore to spawn. Gill net is one of the most popular methods here, besides purse seine and bottom trawl. Because mullet is an important source of raw material for the production of salted mullet roe, karasumi. The fishing industry in Taiwan has strict regulations on fish size to protect long-term resources. This method helps ensure high yields, fresh fish and protects the environment. If done properly, Taiwan is one of the countries with a strong mullet fishing industry, especially focusing on grey mullet, Mackerel. The trawling method plays an important role in the exploitation of this fish, serving both domestic and export markets. The South China Sea and the coastal areas of western Taiwan. This is where mullet is most concentrated in winter, especially near Changhua, Kaohsiung, Tainan and Pingdong, estuaries and brackish waters. Mullet often live in these areas before migrating to the sea. Sea areas near Japan. Some Taiwanese fishing vessels also exploit mullet in this area during offshore fishing trips. Mullet migrate into the coastal waters of Taiwan to spawn, creating opportunities for exploitation with the highest yield. Fishermen take advantage of this to catch large quantities, especially fish with eggs to produce salted mullet roe, karasumi, a valuable specialty. Early morning or dusk, when mullet are most active. Process of catching mullet with a trawl net. Check the net after 4 to 6 hours of release to ensure that the fish are not damaged much. Start slowly pulling the net, keeping the net taut so that the fish do not slip out. Use a winch to pull the net onto the boat, and at the same time remove the fish caught in the net by hand or with a net remover. Filtering fish. Mullet is classified right on the boat to separate commercial fish and small fish. If for sale fresh, fish is immediately iced at a ratio of 1 part fish, 1 part ice to maintain freshness. If for salted mullet roe production, fish with eggs will be processed right on the boat, then brought back to shore to be salted and dried. If for export, fish can be quickly frozen, -40 degrees Celsius, right on the boat to ensure quality when transported long distances. Fish school positioning system, sonar, GPS, helps fishing boats accurately determine the location of the mullet school, reducing search time, support more effective netting, increase fishing productivity. Automatic net pulling machine, helps increase net collection speed, reduce labor, limits fish crushing, ensures higher quality when put into storage. Preservation by IQF technology, helps keep mullet fresh longer, especially when exported to Japan and Europe. Taiwanese mullet is mainly exported to Japan, China, Korea and Europe. Salted mullet roe, karasumi, is the product with the highest economic value. Usually sold for 3,100 USD per kilogram depending on quality. Taiwan's domestic market also consumes fresh mullet and dried mullet. Challenges: declining mullet resources due to overfishing during the spawning season. Climate change affects mullet migration. Competition with other fisheries, especially purse seine and trawl. Apply mesh size regulations to avoid overfishing of juveniles. Implement catch quotas to protect long-term resources. Develop commercial mullet farming models to reduce pressure on wild fish resources. Dredge net fishing is an important method in Taiwan, especially during winter when mullet gathers for spawning. The process of netting and preserving mullet greatly affects the quality of the product, especially salted mullet roe. Despite its many economic advantages, the industry also faces challenges in resource protection and sustainable development. Asian salmon includes many different species of the Salmonidae family, distributed mainly in the Russian Far East, Japan, China, Korea and some other areas. Some important salmon species in Asia include: distributed in the Russian Far East, Japan, usually lives in freshwater when young, then migrates to the sea, has a bright red color during the spawning season. The smallest salmon species among the Pacific salmon species, mainly lives in the Russian Far East and Alaska, characterized by a humpback during the spawning season, also known as keta salmon. It has high commercial value. Distributed in the seas of Japan, Korea and Russia, the meat is less fatty than Atlantic salmon, a typical salmon species of Japan and Korea. There are two forms, living in rivers and streams and migrating to the sea. Considered a specialty in Japan. distributed in the rivers of northern China and Russia, a subspecies of Atlantic salmon, fished for aquaculture and food processing. In addition, some areas in China, Japan and Korea also develop salmon farming, especially rainbow trout, Oncorhynchus mykiss, imported from North America. Salmon fishing in Asia mainly takes place in areas with rich natural salmon resources, especially the Russian Far East, Japan, Korea and China. Salmon in Asia are mainly Pacific salmon species such as sockeye salmon, pink salmon, dog salmon and masu salmon. In addition, salmon farming is also very developed, especially in Japan and China. Wild salmon in Asia are often exploited by traditional and industrial methods, focusing mainly on the spawning migration season. Russian Far East. This is the region with the largest salmon catch in Asia, especially on the coast of Kamchatka, Sakhalin and Primorsky. Japan. Wild salmon are caught mainly in Hokkaido and the northern islands of Japan. Korea. Some rivers in Korea have migratory salmon, but the catch is not large. China. The rivers in northeastern China, bordering Russia, also have migratory salmon. Gill net. The most common method of catching salmon when they migrate into rivers or in coastal areas. Fish traps, weirs, in Russia and Japan. Fixed traps are placed at the mouth of rivers to catch migratory salmon coming to spawn. Purse seine, used on large offshore fishing vessels. Handline and trolling line. Some small fishing vessels use this method to catch salmon in coastal waters. Pacific salmon migrate from May to October, with peaks in July to September. In Japan and South Korea, the salmon fishing season typically lasts from September to December. In Russia, the fishing season can last until November, depending on weather conditions. Due to the increasing demand for salmon, many Asian countries have developed salmon farming to meet the market. Japan, Hokkaido and the sea near Sendai. China, northern provinces such as Shandong, Liaoning, and Qinghai. Korea, some cold-water salmon farms in the southeast. Taiwan and Vietnam. Some highland areas have rainbow trout, Oncorhynchus mykiss, farms. Sea cage farming. Salmon are raised in large offshore cages. Popular in Japan. Recirculating tank farming, RAS. China has invested heavily in this model to raise salmon in an artificial environment. Cold-water lake and river farming. Some areas in Korea and Japan apply this model. Russia and Japan export wild salmon to China, Korea and other countries. China not only farms salmon but also imports from Russia and Norway for filleting, freezing, smoking and canning. Japan consumes a lot of salmon for culinary purposes, sashimi, sushi, and also exports some farmed salmon to Asian markets. Salmon fishing in Asia is mainly carried out in the Russian Far East and Japan, using methods such as gill nets, traps and purse seines. However, due to the decline in wild salmon production, salmon farming is developing strongly in China, Japan and Korea. Salmon from Asia is mainly consumed domestically or exported to other countries in the region. Although salmon is an important resource, both wild fishing and farming face many challenges. Due to overfishing, climate change and habitat degradation, wild salmon numbers are declining. Overfishing. In Japan, large salmon catches have significantly reduced wild production. Habitat loss, pollution and hydroelectric dams disrupt salmon migration into spawning rivers. Climate change. Rising sea temperatures are altering salmon populations, affecting the number of surviving juveniles. Japan releases juveniles into rivers to maintain wild populations. Although salmon farming is booming in China, Japan and South Korea, it also faces some problems. Disease and parasites. High-density farming of salmon increases the risk of disease transmission such as sea lice, fungi and bacteria. Water quality and environmental pollution. Waste from fish farms can pollute surrounding water sources. High feed costs. Salmon eat high-protein feed, mainly fish meal, which increases production costs. Competing with imported salmon. Salmon from Norway and Chile are often priced lower than farmed salmon in Asia, affecting the domestic market. Using recirculating aquaculture systems, RAS, to control disease and reduce pollution. Developing alternative plant-based feeds to reduce costs. Applying AI and IoT technology to monitor water quality and fish health. The salmon industry in Asia is expected to continue to develop in two directions. Japan will continue to control catches with a quota system. Programs to release juvenile salmon into the wild will be expanded, expanding high-tech salmon farming. China is investing in salmon farms in artificial environments, recirculating systems. Japan is researching heat-resistant salmon varieties to adapt to climate change. Southeast Asian countries such as Vietnam and Indonesia can expand salmon farming models in the highlands. Wild salmon exploitation in Asia is facing many difficulties due to declining resources and climate change. Meanwhile, the salmon farming industry is growing, especially in China and Japan. However, to ensure sustainability, the industry needs to apply new technology to reduce pollution, Control diseases and compete with imported salmon. After being exploited or farmed, salmon undergoes processing to serve domestic consumption and export needs. Countries such as Japan, China and Russia are important salmon processing centers in Asia. After being caught or harvested from farms, salmon will be processed right at the port or in the factory to ensure quality. Wild salmon is often chilled on board with cold seawater or shaved ice to keep it fresh. Farmed salmon after harvest is stored in cold water tanks before being transported to the processing plant. Gutting and cleaning. The fish is gutted, washed with cold water to remove bacteria. Cut or fillet. Salmon can be cut whole, filleted or sliced depending on market requirements. Frozen salmon. Salmon fillets are deep frozen, -40 degrees Celsius, and stored at -18 degrees Celsius for export. Smoked salmon. Using cold smoking, at 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, or hot smoking, above 60 degrees Celsius, to create a distinctive flavor. Canned salmon. Salmon is steamed or grilled, then canned with brine or oil. Salmon roe, ikura and caviar. Red salmon roe from Japan and Russia is a high-end product exported to the US and Europe. Salted salmon, shiozaki. Japan has a tradition of salting salmon to preserve and serve as a side dish with rice. Fresh salmon. Packed in insulated boxes with dry ice for air transport. Frozen salmon. Vacuum packed before being shipped in refrigerated containers. Asian countries not only consume salmon domestically but also export salmon globally. Salmon exports from Asian countries. Japan exports farmed and smoked salmon to the US and Europe. China is a center for salmon processing, importing salmon from Russia and Norway, then processing and exporting to other countries. Korea exports a small amount of farmed salmon, mainly serving the domestic market. Largest salmon consumption market. China is the largest salmon consumption market in Asia, especially imported salmon from Norway and Chile. Japan, high demand for salmon in sushi and sashimi dishes. South Korea, salmon is increasingly popular in dishes such as sashimi and grilling. Despite challenges, the salmon industry in Asia still has strong growth potential. Asian consumers are increasingly fond of sashimi, sushi, smoked salmon and frozen salmon. China has a strong salmon consumption, especially among young people. China and Japan are adopting recirculating aquaculture, RAS, models to reduce pollution and control water quality. IoT technology helps monitor fish health and optimize farming conditions. China could become a global salmon processing hub, importing salmon from other countries for processing and re-exporting. Japan and South Korea could increase exports of high-quality salmon to the US and Europe. The salmon fishing and aquaculture industry in Asia is growing strongly but also faces many challenges such as climate change, disease and competition with imported salmon. However, with advanced farming technology and increasing market demand, the salmon industry in Asia has the potential to expand in the future. Modern salmon farming technology, RAS systems, offshore cages, iFish health monitoring. More details about the Asian salmon market, consumption trends, imports, exports, challenges and solutions in the salmon industry, diseases, climate change, competition with imported salmon, traditional and modern salmon processing methods in Asia. Which topic are you most interested in? Although the salmon industry in Asia is growing strongly, there are still many major challenges affecting farming, exploitation and export. Below are the main challenges and potential solutions. Rising sea temperatures make salmon susceptible to heat stress and disease. Polluted freshwater sources affect salmon farming in rivers and lakes. Severe storms and tsunamis threaten salmon farms in the sea. Develop indoor recirculating aquaculture systems, RAS, to control water temperature. Build offshore cages in deep water, avoiding the impact of storms. Apply AI technology to monitor water quality in salmon farms. Farmed salmon are susceptible to sea lice, causing mass mortality. Diseases such as infectious pancreatic necrosis, PD, and Yersinia disease cause great losses. Overuse of antibiotics can cause drug resistance and affect product quality. Use lice-free fish such as sea goby to control parasites. Apply biological vaccine technology instead of antibiotics. Use enzyme-containing feed to increase resistance for salmon. Norwegian and Chilean salmon are cheaper and have stable quality. China, Japan and South Korea rely heavily on imported salmon from Northern Europe and South America. Salmon from Russia and Alaska have an advantage because they are caught naturally. Promote research and development of high-quality salmon varieties. Improve processing to create unique salmon products. Strengthen domestic salmon brands, as Japan has done with Satsuma salmon. China imposes import restrictions on salmon from Japan due to food safety concerns. Asian salmon is having difficulty meeting European and US food hygiene standards. Compete with low-cost salmon suppliers from Norway and Chile. Improve cold chain to keep salmon quality good when exported. Develop traceability systems to ensure salmon meets international standards. Cooperate with major retailers to bring Asian salmon to Western supermarkets. Recirculating aquaculture system, RAS, helps reduce environmental pollution, save water and control diseases well. China and Japan are investing in RAS to farm salmon near major cities. Tongwei Group, China, has built Asia's largest RAS farm to raise salmon near Beijing. Using underwater cameras to monitor fish health. AI system analyzes data on temperature, dissolved oxygen and disease. IoT application helps control automatic feeding to optimize fish growth. eFishery, Indonesia, has developed a smart AI feeding system, helping to reduce feed costs by 30%. The trend of organic salmon and antibiotic-free salmon is increasingly popular. Processed salmon products such as honey-baked salmon, teriyaki salmon, canned sashimi have great potential. Japan exports premium smoked salmon to the US at $60 per kilogram. The salmon industry in Asia is growing rapidly but also faces many challenges. By applying new technology, improving farming processes and expanding markets, Asian salmon can compete more strongly with imported salmon from Europe and South America. The development of the Asian salmon industry is being strongly promoted by modern technologies that help optimize production, reduce disease risks and improve product quality. Below are some advanced technologies being applied. The closed recirculating tank, RAS, salmon farming model is becoming a major trend in countries such as China.